When you're getting ready for your match, which they're now, and they have been for several years, the top of the bill, do you have a certain kind of mindset you want to get in? You want to be left alone? What is it that you would prefer happening? Do you listen to the same music? What is your day like?
Yeah, I do the same routine every time, which is, and this changed particularly when I was cutting to 185, where I would just stay up as late as I could because I was still eating and drinking, trying to rehydrate. Now that's changed at 205, but I used to do that and stay up till 3 to 4 in the morning. Then I would sleep as long as I possibly could the next day. You know what always makes me lackadaisical and want to go to sleep is knowing I have to go to practice or go fight somebody or go wrestle. I mean, it's the same thing every time. You'll see guys yawn right before competitions. Everybody has that. It's not just me. But I've even laid in bed before on nights I couldn't sleep and looked at the clock and said, okay, if I'm up in 30 minutes, I got to go run 5 miles. I will be asleep every single time. I only had to get up and actually do that run once. There's something about the workout coming. That's why we stop for coffee before every practice, like to get that caffeine shot. There's something about it that makes me tired. So at any rate, I sleep as late as I possibly can because I don't want to be in the locker room about to go out and thinking, oh man, I wish I had my pillow and I could take a nap. That's the psychology there. And then, as far as fight day, I do a workout in the morning, really hard, really burn it out, finish with some sprints, and then I rest. I don't like to warm up all that hard before a fight. I warm up and all that, but no, I don't like to go all that hard. I like to get that out earlier in the day. And when something throws that off, particularly if you're the main event, when you're at blast, you don't know when you're up. So it's hard to plan your warm-up. It's not as simple as be at the arena at 7, be taped by 8, and be warmed up by 9 because you're going on at 9:30. You're on whenever that fight before you or all those fights before you are done.
When do you have to be over there, and how do you get there?
Well, it just depends where you are on the card. And both companies...
for instance, you now and for the last several years being the last fight of the night.
Okay.
You know you're going to fight... Let's just say you're going to fight between 8:30 and 9:15. You know that. Do you have to go over there at 5 o'clock in the afternoon?
You would have to report when the main card reports. That's how they break it up. And they can't really make it any easier than that because you got vans running guys over them, and there is a logistics thing there. But I don't have to be there when the first fight goes out. There's 2 different crews that would go, 2 different vans that would leave the hotel, and that's both promotions, UFC or Bellator. They logistically run it the same way. The undercard goes over at this time, the main card goes over at this time, and sometimes they will bring the co-main and the main over a little bit later, but you're only talking about a few minutes there. And one thing Mike Tyson had in his contracts, and I never understood why he had it, but he would have in his contract in writing when he was leaving the locker room. He does not have to leave the locker room until 10 p.m., period, or 9:53 or whatever it was. And that was because when you go on last, you got to know when it's your turn. I've been in wrestling dual meets where it's that exact same way. I was 197 pounds, but if the 74-pounder got a pin and the 84-pounder got a pin, boom, I'm up. And I thought I was going to be up in 25 minutes, and now I'm up in 5 seconds. And so that part's tough, but everybody goes through it. That's not a poor meat to me. Everybody goes through that. Wherever you are on the card, you're up whenever they call your name. But that is one tough spot when you're waiting in the back for your turn to go, and you don't know when that is because you want to warm up, but then you want to have enough cool down before you walk out there, but not too much. There's a balance there. I don't mean to overthink it, but it's the question you asked me.
Well, wrestling, I've wrestled thousands of matches, and you could pretty much... you can stop doing whatever you're doing and go out onto the mat and wrestle because you've literally done it millions of times between practice and matches. I didn't fight a bunch. I fought a handful of times. The waiting is excruciating. It seems like the fight day takes... It has different levels. It'll go really, really, really slow until about 4 o'clock, then it'll speed up, and then it'll slow down. The waiting seems to be the hardest part, and people talk about it. Daniel Cormier was talking about it on his Countdown show, and you've made reference to it numerous times, is that relief that you have once the competition is over. It's the biggest relief in the world, and it has to be because of the waiting.
I fully agree with that. The anticipation is not a good thing. When you look at what Conor did, and I would put Conor down, I think you got to call him the best ever. Now, I don't think he's as good as George St. Pierre. However, he won 2 championships in the 2 hardest weight classes, period. He did that. That happened. And he won them both devastatingly. Both in the first round. Once in, 11 seconds and once in the first round. I put him down as the best ever. And one thing about him that doesn't get spoken of enough, and it should, is how calm he can stay. Because if you want to talk about pressure, put on a guy. Top of the bill, walking out last, everybody's there to see you. Biggest draw they have. Then he's got to look at his last fight. Madison Square Garden, up a weight class. Never even been in this weight class before. Up a weight class. Got to fight the baddest dude in the world, Eddie Alvarez. All of these things that go on to it, and he just walks out there and can still perform and take care of business. I don't feel like he's ever been given his due for that. You know, that was something that Randy had to go through. Randy fought, I believe, one time. Could be wrong. I believe one time, and it was Mike Van Arsdale, that wasn't a main event. He only fought in main events. He only fought last, sitting back there waiting, and then he's the alpha in the locker room. So if we were in locker rooms and I've got to fight, I'm looking to him to make sure I'm ready when it's my turn to fight, and he knows that's his job. And he embraces it. Well, if I'm co-main, and this happened one time where I'm the co-main and then he's got to go as soon as I'm done. He can't even get himself ready until I leave the locker room because I'm leaning on him to make sure I'm ready. That's just the way it works. He was in a locker room one time with Evan Tanner and Matt Lindland, and then he had to go on and he had to get them both ready. I remember the speeches he had to give Matt Lindland. You know, Matt Lindland's as solid as they come, but Phil Baroni was in Matt's head, at least on some level. That's what Phil does. And I remember when Randy had to sit him down before that match, and it's like, hey, Randy, this is awesome, but you got a match too. And it's just a really tough balance. And I don't feel that Conor's ever been given his due for that. And I think he deserves it.
Let's circle back to that, because that was the Super Bowl card when you fought Marquardt. Was that different, having your mentor coming up after you, and you just went through a war with? So I want to know about before the match and then after the match. You went through a war. You had to get stitched up. Did you get to watch Randy's match?
Oh, yeah, I watched the whole thing. Him versus Coleman, I watched the whole thing, and I got to enjoy it. And, yes, it was very helpful to be in that locker room, but it wasn't for him. I mean, he would normally get to go in a locker room and take care of him, but he can't do that when I'm in there and I'm going on first. It's just the way the relationship is. So, yeah, it benefited me. I don't know that it benefited him, but that was an interesting night, too. He had a referee. He didn't want that referee, and there was some kind of a debate that went on that even consisted to the commission, Lorenzo, and Dana coming in the locker room and dealing with whatever issues this is. So, yeah, he had some distractions, but sometimes some distractions are good. You know, just sitting and thinking about your match aren't great. I see some other athletes. I want to go back to this Conor thing because I do think he deserves credit, and I don't feel that he's given it for this. I see some other athletes, and they'll go on and they'll talk about this guy's got ice running through his veins. He can shoot a free throw when everybody's watching in the NBA Finals. I'm like, ice running through his under what stress is he? He's got a ball. He's standing still on a line, and there's a basket. But how's that ice running through your veins? And I'll hear these commentators that are so impressed by, and maybe they should be, but for me, I can't get behind that. But if that is a real thing, ice running through your veins and dealing with stress, and the fact that nobody's tipped their hat to Conor McGregor for what he had to go through at Madison Square Garden, going into a weight class that he's never been in, going against the baddest dude walking the planet that weighs 155 pounds, and Eddie Alvarez having the entire arena in a Blockbuster gate all on his shoulders, and he still walked out there and performed. I think he deserves some due.